Carlo Ancelotti's second stint in charge of Real Madrid has been a hugely successful one. The Italian coach led Los Blancos to an unlikely 14th Champions League, got his hands on La Liga too, something he didn't manage the first time, and also added an additional UEFA Super Cup and Club World Cup to the club's trophy cabinet. But while victory over Barcelona in the Copa del Rey semi-final has eased fears that he could end his second season trophyless, their arch-rivals' title procession in La Liga and Real's own inconsistent form has left them closer to 5th place Villarreal in terms of points, and Ancelotti's future has inevitably been called into question. Even if he stays this summer, it feels likely he will leave the club at the end of his contract in 2024, with an offer to manage Brazil reportedly on the table. So who should succeed him at the Bernabeu? On today's EFD Explained, we're going to assess 3 potential candidates. Long hailed as European football's next superstar manager, it's only natural that Julian Nagelsmann is rumoured to be one of the top candidates to replace Carlo Ancelotti. In fact, he could have taken over at the Bernabeu 5 years ago, with the young coach revealing in 2018 that the Real hierarchy had contacted him in the wake of Zinedine Zidane's departure that summer. He rejected the opportunity, citing the fact he was only 31, didn't want to move countries at the time, and was confident he'd get another crack at the job later down the line. It's probably just as well he didn't. While he had performed a miracle at Hoffenheim, taking over a side that sat joint bottom of the league with just 2 wins from 20 in February 2016 and leading them to Champions League qualification within 15 months, a dressing room containing Sergio Ramos, Karim Benzema and Gareth Bale among others may have been difficult for a relatively inexperienced coach to handle. And even at 35, keeping senior players happy was something he had trouble with at Bayern Munich, with Manuel Neuer upset over the sacking of longtime goalkeeping coach Toni Tabalovic, the decision to sub another club legend in Thomas Müller early in 2 games also proving unpopular, and a rocky relationship with Robert Lewandowski ultimately leading to the striker's departure. But despite these sticking points and the severe drop-off in performance that ultimately cost Nagelsmann his job, it would be harsh to judge him solely on what went wrong at Bayern. Yes, it's been his only experience at an elite club, but given how much went right for him prior to taking the job at the Allianz, it's only fair we analyse him by also taking into account the excellent work he did at Hoffenheim and Leipzig. And given the kind of shake-up he gave both of those sides, turning a very limited Hoffenheim squad into one of Germany's fiercest attacking units, and evolving RB Leipzig from a team that operated strictly in transition, the so-called Red Bull philosophy, into one that thrived playing a more possession-heavy style, we would expect to see him do something similar at Real. This would certainly be a departure from the kinds of managers who have achieved success there over the last decade, Carlo Ancelotti and Zinedine Zidane, both of whom specialise in managing egos and letting world-class players express themselves on the pitch, rather than trying to push a particular tactical philosophy. But while this formula has delivered the club 5 European Cups since 2014, it doesn't necessarily mean it will continue to do so in the future. If Nagelsmann was appointed, he would be taking over a very different squad, one which has more mouldable players than in the past. The club looks primed to have an entirely new midfield in the next 2 years as Tchouaméni and Camavinga become increasingly influential, while a move for Jude Bellingham looks likely. Add in a forward line that may consist of Vinicius Jr., Rodrigo and Endrick in years to come, and you have a large chunk of the team that will remain relatively young for a good while. That's not to say they won't need to be managed. Vinicius is already a superstar, for example, but they will almost certainly respond better to Nagelsmann's maverick tendencies than the old guard at Bayern did. And if he can make his mark tactically, most of the battle will be won. At Bayern, he kept the side scoring 2.9 goals per game even after Lewandowski's departure, helped Jamal Musiala become one of the most productive attackers in the Bundesliga despite also giving him minutes in deeper positions, and revived Leroy Sané's fortunes at the club. In his first year at Leipzig, Timo Werner scored 28 in the league, something only Lewandowski and Aubameyang have bettered in the last decade, with the side averaging 2.4 goals per game, their best record since promotion to the Bully in 2016, doing so whilst carrying out the aforementioned transition to a more Pep Guardiola-influenced style of play. That term, Nagelsmann implemented 9 different formations whilst getting career-best performances from several players, and by the time he left, they were averaging 60% possession, a huge increase from 49% in the season before he arrived. It's hard to know whether a similar approach would be as successful at Real. The Bernabeu is more of a blank canvas than Leipzig in terms of playing style, and so could play into his hands even more. On the other hand, his Leipzig team were already used to taking on incredibly detailed tactical instructions and sticking to them rigidly as a unit, while Real have often thrived by managing themselves on the field, entrusted to do so from the manager. Nagelsmann is probably the most exciting option Real could go for, but with that comes risk, and with Chelsea also heavily interested, he's a man in demand. Like Nagelsmann, Mauricio Pochettino has also been monitored by Real Madrid in the past, reportedly their number one candidate to replace Zidane when he first left the club in 2018. And also like Nagelsmann, they may have to fight a Premier League club to get their hands on him, with Poch also linked with a return to Tottenham. But while the familiarity of Spurs may appeal to a manager burned by a tough spell at PSG, Real can still make a more compelling case with their ready-made ability to challenge for silverware, global prestige, and a well-managed slow-burn rebuild project already well underway. But what would he bring to the Bernabeu? Well, on a tactical level, he may be more suited than Nagelsmann. While both would implement a more intense pressing game than Ancelotti, whose side rank 11th in the league for passes per defensive action, Poch is more rigid in terms of shape, having stuck mainly to 4-2-3-1 or 4-3-3 throughout his managerial career. He isn't overly rigid though, having utilised 3 at the back systems too, especially at Spurs, where the ability of Kyle Walker, Danny Rose, Kieran Trippier and Ben Davies to play both as fullbacks and wingbacks were a defining part of his success. And regardless of who Real appoints next, this is the area of the squad in the most need. Dani Carvajal has been in decline for some time, making the fewest tackles and interceptions of his Real career this term, and ranking in the bottom 10% of fullbacks in Europe's top 5 leagues for progressive carries, making less than 1 a game. With the defensive and attacking sides of his game drying up, he is long overdue replacing. Ferland Mendy, meanwhile, has struggled with injury in the second half of the campaign and has never offered much of an attacking threat, registering just 9 goal involvements across 4 seasons and ranking bottom of the squad for expected goals and assists. A quick look at their SofaScore heat maps reveals how reluctant they are to take the ball to the byline, while Mendy's reflects the fact he has carried the ball into the penalty area just twice this entire season. For context, that's less than half of what Vinicius Jr. manages each game. Of course, these numbers aren't just down to the players. Carlo Ancelotti has classically let his team play to their natural strengths. If Mendy and Carvajal aren't brilliant attackers, then they may have been actively discouraged from joining the attack. But regardless, Pochettino would need more expansive fullbacks at his disposal. If they don't want to dip into the market, then Fran Garcia, who initially left the club in 2020, is due to return from Rayo Vallecano in the summer for a reported €5 million. The 23-year-old left-back ranks among the top 1% of fullbacks for progressive carries, offering more forward thrust than Mendy. And on the right, they currently have highly rated Brazilian teenager Vinicius Tobias on loan from Shakhtar Donetsk. Though he's so far been limited to minutes with the B team, he has impressed. If his move is made permanent and his development is managed well, the future of the right-back slot is exciting. And unlike Ancelotti, who tends to rely on experience, a manager like Pochettino has always placed a lot of trust in youth, fielding the youngest starting 11 in the Premier League for his first 3 seasons in charge at Spurs, and the second youngest starting 11 in the division during his 1 full season at Southampton, where he launched the careers of Luke Shaw, Callum Chambers and James Ward-Prowse. Florentino Perez may have been concerned by a disappointing spell at PSG, but will also know the side Poch would be taking over in Spain is far more balanced than what he had at the Parc des Princes, where Messi, Mbappe and Neymar left a lot of defensive work for an ageing midfield to deal with. Poch's pressing game could thrive with the likes of Camavinga and Fede Valverde to work with. Our final candidate is a wild card, having been in his first top-level managerial position for just over 5 months as this goes out. But Xabi Alonso does have close ties with Real, having been a key part of one of its greatest ever sides between 2009 and 2014, and leading their under-14 side to a league title in his first coaching job in 2018-19. From there, he returned to boyhood club Real Sociedad to manage their B team and got them promoted to the Spanish second tier in 2021, something no coach had achieved since 1960. His great work in the Basque Country eventually saw him offered the Bayer Leverkusen job in October 2022, and he has made the step up with ease, with only Bayern Munich and Borussia Dortmund taking more than their 38 points in the Bundesliga since he was appointed, and his side also boasting the 3rd best attacking record during that time. It's no fluke. According to Understat, they also rank third in the league for expected points since October, and only RB Leipzig have conceded fewer expected goals against. Mightily impressive given he took over a side that sat second bottom of the league after just one win from their first 8 fixtures, were conceding 2 goals a game, only Schalke and Bochum were conceding more, and were scoring just 1.1 goals a game. Die Werkself are now scoring 2.2 a game and conceding just 1.3. And while he couldn't get them through their Champions League group, he did beat Atletico Madrid to the Europa League spot, and as this goes out has a real shot at getting them to a first European semi-final since 2002. With such little top-flight experience, it feels unlikely that Alonso would take the Real job if it was offered to him this summer. But if Ancelotti stays on for another year and he enjoys another successful season in Germany, the stars could align. It would of course be a risk, but with former managers Pep Guardiola and Jose Mourinho having previously backed him to be a success in the dugout, Alonso has the potential to be a future managerial star. So that was our deep dive on who Real Madrid should hire next, but what do you make of these 3 potential candidates? Let us know in the comments. If you enjoyed this video, please leave it a like, and why not check out the rest of our Explainer series. Thanks for watching, and we'll see you next time.